Who is a better option for India, Labour or Tory? I'm joined by a very special panel, Lord Dolar Popat. He's the government whip and also Minister for Business, a leading conservative voice. Manoj Ladwa, many of our viewers in India will know him as a key Modi strategist, but he also has a double role as a strategist in Team Miliband. And also joining us is a leading industrialist, Rami Ranger, but whose sympathies are also with the Conservative Party. Ashish Ray is one of our most senior journalists who's been reporting politics for a very long time here in London. Thank you all so much for joining us. Rahul Joglekar, of course, of NDTV, keeping me company on this very, very windy afternoon here in London. Now, Manoj Ladwa, first explain. This is something that a lot of people are still trying to process. You're supporting a right-wing party in India and a left-wing party here.
I don't accept the right and left-wing connotations with India and the UK. For instance, if you look at the term nationalist, in India, every politician would say they're a nationalist. In this country, the word nationalist has very negative connotations. And therefore, simply putting people in the left or the right camp and comparing, you're not comparing apples and pears. So
no, but tell me, surely, I mean, you're a big supporter of Team Modi, but it was under a Labour government that Modi was blacklisted by the UK.
Well, Ed Miliband just the other week said very clearly that he's looking forward to welcoming Prime Minister Modi to the UK, and India will be very high on his list of priorities. So I think the time has come to draw a line about
So you're saying
what
happened in the past is in the past?
Well, look, let's look at David Cameron. He's been asked to apologise for Jallianwala Bagh. He hasn't apologised for Jallianwala Bagh. How far are we going to go back into the past? Are we going to start talking about the very idea and concept of British colonialism and ask Britain to apologise about that? Look, we have a Prime Minister in India that's looking forward, and I think Britain needs to look forward, India needs to look forward.
But you saying India for Labour, that's your pitch, that's the hashtag you've been trying to trend on Twitter. Lord Popat, would you accept this? Is Labour a better fit for India, particularly for this government, or is it the other way around?
Not at all. Labour is not fit for the Indian government. What we have done and what we have achieved in 5 years, our focus on trade. We are, in fact, our Prime Minister visited India 4 times, once as a leader of the opposition, 3 times the largest delegation in this history of this country.
But that's the advantage he had as Prime Minister. What's wrong with Labour? Why do you think Labour is not a fit?
Well, let me talk about what we have done in 5 years.
Okay.
We are focused on trade and diplomacy with Prime Minister Modi. We were the people who actually engaged with Prime Minister Modi. It was the Labour Party who suspended those relations. And the 13 years to reinstate it. They didn't do it. We were the first people. I accompanied our High Commissioner, James Bevan, to see Modi to reinstate this relationship. And we were the first European country to do so. We are a pro-business, pro-Modi party.
Rebut quickly.
Well, it's fine saying that when chalti gaadi chalti hai, then everybody wants to jump onto the bandwagon. Who was there between 2002 and 2010? It was Labour members of Parliament that went to visit Prime Minister Modi during vibrant Gujarat.
But look, it was the Labour government, as he points out, which these are issues that suspended relations, and it was the Tory government that restored it.
Look, these are issues of the past, and at some point, just as Prime Minister Modi himself has drawn a line under this, he will be the first person to say that, look, let's look forward. He's looked forward in terms of the US, he's looked forward in terms of Germany and France. It's no point now hanging on to the coattails of Prime Minister Modi. The Conservatives have to win an election in this country on issues relating to this country.
Now, it's interesting to see how there's this tussle to say who's Narendra Modi's best friend, particularly in the run-up to these elections, because obviously the Asian vote, the Gujarati vote, is very important. So is all this business of wooing Modi ji, is this just politics, or is there any genuine sentiment behind it?
I think what we have to see is the values. We share values as the Asian community, Indian community. We share value with the Conservative Party, family value, enterprise, self-discipline, reliant, self-resigned.
Are you saying Manoj Ladwa does not have family values?
Because the party,
he may not appreciate
they
that.
Say, I believe in party which give you freedom. The more the government decide, the less the people decide.
All right.
So I need a party which give you freedom, and we have to go look at the track record of the Conservative Party for the last 5 years. They have gone out of the way to build bridges with India, and the Indian members of Parliament in the Conservative Party. You have seen Lord Popat is the example. He has promoted people to the House of Lords. Prime Minister has been to Golden Temple, he has been to Temple, Swami Roy.
But some would say this is
semantics.
All,
this is actually semantics. If you don't mind me coming in here, look, it was the Labour Party, that fought side by side with India for India's independence.
But you're the one who said don't go to the past. No, but now you've gone even further.
No. Let me explain the history. When we talk about values, let's look at the last Labour government. It was a Labour government that established the UK-India Business Council to promote trade and investment with India. Right. It was a Labour government that promoted more highly skilled migrants to come into the UK. It was a Labour government that, on the issue of outsourcing to India, put their foot down and said, when the others were opposing this on outsourcing, it was a Labour government that said a job to India is not a job lost to the UK.
It was the Conservative government which allowed the Uganda Asian to come in. It was the Conservative government which abolished the limit for Indian worker to come in.
Okay. Let Rahul Joglekar come in. Yes.
Well,
quickly.
I just want to say one thing, that this discussion is very fascinating. Let's just step back for a minute, and you begin to see that in this country, in a world capital, in London, there is a real acknowledgement of India's place in the world. And I think if you just go back even 10 years, even 15 years, yes, this discussion was kind of not taking place in a city like London, in places like Washington, and across the world. And both gentlemen from all sides of the political hue want to show their kind of commitment to Mr. Modi. I mean,
that's fair enough.
And want to kind of almost elbowing each other to show how friendly they are to Mr. Modi. I mean, it's amusing at one level.
What do you make of it?
Well, I think, first of all, India is not that much of a factor. Let's face it. Indians in this country, people of Indian origin, may think India is a factor, but it is not. This is a British election, and it's a marginal factor that India is or Indians are. Now, Modi is a factor when it comes to Gujaratis in this country, and therefore there are constituencies where the relationship of the MP concerned with Modi or the BJP may matter. But there are other constituencies where there are Sikhs, where Modi doesn't matter. In Southall, in West London, for instance, in the West Midlands, for instance, where it's a completely different issue.
Okay, but apart from the Asian vote, in terms of both these parties claiming to be the real contender as India's friend and as someone who has better equations with Narendra Modi, who do you think is a better contender?
I think we need to go back into history a little bit here. Clearly, at the time of independence, because the Labour Party, a Labour government, granted independence to India, Indian political parties, the Indian establishment in general, the Indian people who were here as well as in India, they felt closer to the Labour Party. Right. Over the years, things have changed. They've become more or less equal. And in fact,
a lot has changed.
In fact, in recent years, the party that vehemently opposed Indian independence, led by Winston Churchill, is today very friendly towards India. Yeah. So I don't think there is much of a choice. Whether it's a Labour government or a Conservative government, I don't think it makes much of a difference for India.
Change is inevitable.
But can I just ask you something? If you look at it from the economic point of view, because after all the relationship is defined by economics, some would say, Manoj, that a Labour government comes with the promise or the threat, depending on which side of the fence you're on, of a punitive tax regime, of generally being investor unfriendly, which may turn potential Indian businessmen away.
Well, look, I'm standing in front of two multimillionaires here, and the fact of the matter is that under a Labour...
But they're Tories.
Yes, but of course. But it was under a Labour government in the Blair years that more Indians became millionaires, and it's under the Conservative Party that more Indians than ever are relying upon food banks. In this country, your viewers will be shocked to know that close to 10 lakh people in this country relied upon food banks last year. And that's the real issue.
No, but the fact is,
the result of the Labour policies of spending money that we didn't have, creating jobs we didn't need, and then crashing the economy. Today we are suffering because of the policies of Blair and Brown.
No, but can I just want to ask you, because Manoj represents, at least in India, a party which is said to be pro-business. But coming back to this point of taxation, if you're going to have restrictions on who is domiciled, who is non-domiciled, who is going to be taxed, who is not going to be taxed, isn't that a turn-off?
Sure. I think the gentleman who responded the election effect to India, there'll have a profound effect on this election. This is the most important election for India. I'll tell you why. In fact, the Labour is anti-business, anti-entrepreneurs, anti-wealth creators. And obviously they want to get rid of non-doms. We're getting large inward investment from Indians, and that will really affect high taxation, more legislation, more regulation. These are the things that will hit. We've spent 5 years more or less doubling trade with India, and we want to continue doing so. We want more inward investment here, we want more outward investment.
Modi can argue and say that, you know, the biggest investment from India ever, from the Tatas, took place when Labour were in power.
Correct.
So, you know, I don't think it really matters. As far as Indian foreign policy is concerned, as far as India's economic relations with Britain are concerned, it does not matter very much whether it's a Conservative government or a Labour government.
I think Ashish is making a valid point here, that in the end, the UK is important for people of Indian origin and the relationship with India. But if you look at the wider global...
bipartisan.
And the good thing that's happened...
If there's anything which is going to bring us closer, is the business. Modi ji is pro-business. David Cameron is pro-business. It's the business which is going to bring India closer, not the Ed Miliband, who is only interested in looking after the working...
Okay, just a second, before you rebut, quickly.
No, and you know, Vasu, we've reported on this, and you know, I want to take say this to Manoj. Manoj, you know, the current Prime Minister, David Cameron, let's give credit where it is due. I mean, he has worked very hard to at least be seen to be doing a lot to develop a relationship with India. Of course, his critics have attacked him that, you know, this is all theatre. Of course, all of that as well. I mean, but on the other hand, I think Labour has, the party has taken India for granted for many, many years. I mean, they have thought that, you know, it's fine, we know our relationship with India, that's fine. And I think there's that level of complacency, and I think that needs to be addressed.
I couldn't agree more. I do agree with you that the Labour Party has to and must do more with the Indian community. But as far as the Conservative Party, well, they were at rock bottom. It's only the last few years, and credit to David Cameron that he has started to reach out. But
the 5 years...
But can I just, in the middle of this...
And that's made the Labour Party more aware of India as well.
Absolutely. So this is a great thing, where you're having much more of a balanced discourse between the political parties on India and the Indian diaspora.
Okay, let me flip
this. In response to what everyone has been saying,
yes,
there is no mention of India in the Labour Party manifesto whatsoever. Whereas the Conservative Party manifesto makes specific references to India, the special relationship that they wanted, they've built on it. They've said that they will support India's permanent membership of the United Nations Security Council. It also says that they will work very hard towards a free trade agreement between India and the EU, but there's no reference, no mention. I'm surprised because, as I said, historically the relationship has been with the Labour Party. Now, what Rami said was business to business is important. It is important, but I'll tell you what is crucial for the relationship. Number one, political affairs, there has to be greater agreement between the two countries.
What do you mean specifically?
Specifically on international issues, where mostly India and Britain disagree, from the United Nations to other platforms. And secondly, on security matters. There isn't a closeness between the two countries when it comes to security issues. If these two factors can be resolved, it doesn't matter whether there's a Labour government or a Conservative government, the relationship will become much closer.